The decision reportedly lasted less than 10 minutes inside the palace meeting room, but I honestly think it changed Leonor, Princess of Asturias's entire life forever. And the strangest part, most people watching from the outside probably thought it was just another routine royal move. Another schedule adjustment, another public appearance, another carefully managed step toward becoming queen. But if you look closer, really closer, this didn't feel routine at all. Because the moment King Felipe VI made that emotional decision, something shifted in the relationship between father and daughter. Not publicly, emotionally. And honestly, I think that's the real story the palace can't fully hide anymore. Because over the last few days, I've noticed something fascinating about how people are reacting to Leonor online. The conversation isn't only about her future role now. People are emotionally invested in her. That's different. That means viewers are no longer watching a symbol. They're watching a young woman slowly realizing the cost of her destiny. And I think Felipe realized something painful before everyone else did. The more he prepares Leonor to survive the crown, the more he risks taking away the last pieces of her normal life. That's the emotional contradiction at the center of this entire story. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Most headlines frame Felipe as disciplined, strategic, calculated, the calm king protecting the institution. But personally, I think his strongest decisions lately have been emotional, not political. That matters because emotional decisions always leave fingerprints. You can feel them. And this latest move, the increased structure around Leonor's appearances, the controlled pacing of her image, the way the palace suddenly feels more protective than celebratory, doesn't feel like strategy alone. It feels like a father realizing time is moving too fast. And honestly, that realization changes people. Especially parents. Especially royal parents. Now compare that with how Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, present their family image in Britain. There's still this visible attempt to preserve emotional normalcy around their children. But Spain's monarchy feels heavier lately. More urgent. Almost like the palace quietly understands Leonor's transition into future queen is no longer coming someday. It's happening now. And that creates pressure no training can fully prepare someone for. Now let me say something that may sound controversial. I don't think Felipe's emotional decision was about making Leonor stronger. I think it was about making her harder to hurt. That's different. Very different. Because strength builds confidence. Protection builds walls. And lately, I've started wondering whether the palace is unintentionally teaching Leonor emotional distance as a survival mechanism. You can already see hints of it. The carefully measured expressions. The increased control. The almost constant awareness during public appearances. Nothing looks fake exactly, but it does look guarded. And honestly, that makes me a little sad. Because every future monarch eventually reaches a moment where they stop being treated like a person first, and start being treated like an institution. I think Leonor may be approaching that moment faster than expected. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because these stories are no longer just about royal headlines. They're about identity, emotional pressure, family sacrifice, and the hidden human cost behind modern monarchy. Now here's what really stayed in my mind this week. There was a tiny moment during a recent appearance where Leonor looked toward Felipe before responding publicly. Most people probably ignored it instantly, but I didn't, because that single glance said something powerful without words. It looked like trust, but it also looked like dependence. Almost like part of her still wants reassurance from her father before stepping fully into this massive role alone. And honestly, I think that's completely human. People forget how young she still is because the royal image makes her appear older emotionally. But underneath all the training and preparation, this is still someone navigating enormous expectations while millions of people analyze every move. That pressure changes a person slowly. Not dramatically, quietly. And that's exactly why I think Felipe's decision matters so much emotionally. Because fathers sometimes make difficult choices believing they're protecting their children, only to realize later those same choices accelerated the loss of innocence. That's the hidden tragedy of responsibility. Now let me give you my hot take here. I actually think modern monarchy creates a very specific type of loneliness that older generations never fully experienced. Permanent observation. And that changes everything. In previous decades, royals could still emotionally disappear between appearances. They had private emotional space. Today, every expression becomes a clip. Every silence becomes speculation. Every friendship becomes a theory online. There's no real emotional off switch anymore. And I honestly wonder whether Felipe's emotional decision was partly driven by fear of that reality. Because once Leonor fully becomes the face of Spain's future, there's no going backward. That version of her life becomes permanent. And I think Felipe knows exactly how unforgiving permanence can be. That's why his recent energy feels less political to me and more deeply paternal. Not controlling, protective. There's a difference. And honestly, I think audiences feel that difference too. That's why people keep emotionally connecting to Leonor's story even when there's no giant scandal attached to it. The emotional stakes are enough. Watching someone slowly transition from daughter to national symbol is emotionally compelling all by itself. Even creators outside royal media understand this now. Look at someone like Mr. Beast. The reason audiences stay invested isn't just spectacle. It's emotional narrative. People follow transformation stories. And Leonor's transformation is happening publicly in real time. That's powerful, but it's also dangerous emotionally. Because the world rewards visibility while quietly exhausting the people living inside it. That's the contradiction royal institutions still struggle to understand. Now here's the part nobody in the palace would ever say out loud. Every emotional sacrifice Leonor makes today probably helps stabilize the monarchy tomorrow. But what happens to her personally in that process? That's the question I keep coming back to. Because history is full of royals who fulfilled duty perfectly while privately losing pieces of themselves. And honestly, I think Felipe is terrified of repeating that cycle with his daughter. That fear explains so much. It explains the intensity, the protectiveness, the emotional caution. Even the way he watches her now feels different. Not just as a king mentoring an heir, but as a father silently realizing he cannot fully shield his child from the life he himself inherited. And maybe that realization is what truly changed Leonor's life forever. Not the official decision itself, but the emotional message underneath it. The moment her father quietly accepted that preparing her for the crown also meant preparing her to lose certain freedoms permanently. That's heavy, heavier than most royal coverage ever admits. And honestly, I think that's why this story resonates so deeply online right now. Because underneath the palace imagery, people recognize a universal fear. Parents wanting to protect their children from pain, while also knowing some futures cannot be avoided. That emotional conflict exists in every family at some level. The only difference is Leonor's version happens in front of the entire world. And I think that reality is finally starting to show emotionally. Now let me ask you something. Do you think Felipe's emotional decision truly protected Leonor? Or do you think it quietly pushed her further into a life she may never fully escape? Because personally, I think that question is going to define the next chapter of the Spanish monarchy more than any official royal announcement ever